What is up, fam? Welcome back to Authentic Rehab. My name is Zachary Beckwith, and I help people live authentically. Today, I want to talk about self-acceptance and self-compassion. This is something that I believe we all need a bit more of. I certainly need more of it. I want to talk about a story and something that my mother told me early on in recovery that really stuck with me. It really changed how I looked at life. It really changed how I looked at myself and how hard I was on myself. I was about a month into recovery and I was sitting in my basement. I still lived with my parents at this time. I was sitting in my basement watching a podcast or a TV show, and my mother was upstairs setting up some lights on her front porch, and she called me up to help her. Now, my mother is the most incredible person that I know. She does everything for me, always has and always will, and I know this without a doubt. Now, she asked me to come upstairs for 5 minutes to help her with these lights, and I threw a temper tantrum. I didn't want to go up. I was in my zone. I was being very self-centered, which I was and still can be to this day. But I eventually swallowed my pride. I paused my show and I walked upstairs and went to help her. And about 3 minutes into helping her, I was now having a full meltdown, and I was having a hard time putting up the lights because I was not in a good frame of mind. I was not being my best self. And my mom eventually just told me to just go back downstairs, that she didn't need my help. And this is subconsciously what I wanted. But I ended up going downstairs and I had to dwell in this shit. And it made me feel like crap. Because if you're anything like me, you know how hard you can be on yourself. I knew that this wasn't me being the person that I wanted to be or that I could be. I know how much my mom does for me, and she needed 5 minutes of my time, and I couldn't even give her that. And this didn't just beat me up for the rest of that night. It beat me up the entire next day. And I was at work, and it was ruining this day at work. And I was talking to a coworker about how much this was upsetting me, how much my mom does for me, and that I just couldn't even help her with this one simple thing, and how I acted like a complete ass, and how upset I was with myself. And my mom texted me while I was at work because she knew I was hurting. And she just said, what's going on? Like, you obviously weren't yourself last night. Is everything okay? And I told her that everything was fine, that I was watching a TV show, that I completely acted out of character. I was extremely sorry, and that I was beating myself up severely. And I felt really bad for what I had done and how I had acted. And she texted me one simple thing. She said, if you were as nice to yourself as you were others, everything would be just fine. And that hit home with me so hard. I don't think I've ever been the same since that moment. I remember I broke down in tears when I read that text. It really struck a nerve with me. I can be so understanding and so compassionate to everybody around me. I can give second and third and fourth chances to people. I can understand when somebody's having a bad day or when they act out of character. I can do this for everybody else, but I do not have that ability to do it to myself. People can make mistakes, and I am the first person to be like, they're having a hard day. Like, something's going on in their life to where they acted that way. But why can't I be like that for myself? Why can't I understand that I'm not always going to have good days, that I'm going to have bad days, that I'm going to act out of character, I'm going to react in ways that make me childish and bring out my inner child. And that's okay. We don't always have to be on our game. But what we need to do is we need to learn from these moments when we act out of character and we're not aligning with the person that we want to be or that we know that we can be. But we need to start to practice self-compassion, self-understanding more often. I personally, at times, have so much negative self-talk, so much self-doubt that limits me from being the best version of myself. I need to learn to practice the compassion that I have for others and bring that towards myself. And this journey of recovery, I've really worked on this. I really try to be more understanding and more compassionate for myself. I try not to belittle myself or have that self-doubt. I try to embrace discomfort and face my fears to be the best version of myself. This has really stuck with me ever since my mother told me this. I also want people to think, because I know there's a lot of people right now that are saying, well, I'm very much like you, where I can be compassionate for everybody else, but not always myself. But what about the people that aren't even compassionate for others, or that are simply mean to others? I want you to sit and think about the level of suffering that somebody is enduring if they are belittling or being mean to somebody else. I myself can be nice to everybody, but not myself. So if you are being mean to somebody else, you are really suffering. We need to remember this. There are people in this world that are doing sick things. That are doing things that most of us couldn't fathom. But I want you to really think about the level of suffering that this person is enduring if they aren't even being nice to people around them. The amount of suffering and resentment and lack of self-compassion that they have towards themselves is to a level that most of us couldn't even begin to understand. I really hope that we can all practice more self-compassion and self-acceptance, as we are all capable of so much more than we think we are, but we're not always going to have good days, and that is okay. The biggest thing is we do the best that we can. My therapist has me use this little mantra, and it is, where am I? I am here. What time is it? It is now. How am I doing? The best that I can. And this is what I try to live by every single day, in every single moment. We just simply do the best that we can and always love yourselves, even in times of struggling. I love you all so much. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. Namaste.